Hi, friends. I hope that you guys are having a wonderful holiday time, no matter what holiday you celebrate. Um, I am going to need someone to test if I can be heard. If I can be heard, which I'm pretty sure I can, then everything is going great and everything is exactly as I planned it. Um, yeah, today's stream is definitely going to be something a little bit different. Usually when I stream, we talk about super serious stuff and like important news that's going on in the world. But I decided that because today was Christmas Day, that it would be fun to share Christmas stories. I don't know when it is that people are supposed to say Merry Christmas. I've always said it on both Christmas Day and Christmas Eve. But if you can, if you're someone who celebrates Christmas regardless of your religion, I hope that you're having a Merry Christmas. I am. It's definitely been an interesting time. And I hope that if you don't celebrate, it helps to. I'm glad that you can hear me, Tria, and I'm glad that you unmuted. I actually have my own thing muted because Streamlabs shows comments a little bit slow. So I like to have a YouTube bar pulled up. But I have a YouTube sidebar pulled up so I can see comments as they're hopping in. I'm not going to be in the comment section like typing comments this time, but I am going to be in the comments reading things. So I'll be able to react to things that you say as you guys say them. If you are here and you are chilling with me and you have friends and family online who are comfortable with you sharing stuff like this, I would love for you guys to like and share, do all the usual YouTube stuff. It definitely helps me expand the reach of my channel, all that good stuff. But today we're just going to be talking about Christmas and sharing Christmas stories. For those of you who don't know, I am an atheist now, but I was raised in a Christian home. And because of that, I celebrated Christmas growing up. And not all Christians celebrate Christmas. I'm not making the blanket assumption that they all did, but I did. So I wanted to share some Christmas stories from my childhood with y'all. I was a military brat. My dad was and is in the army, and my mom was in the army, and then she stopped being in the army. She left when I was born. And because of that, we got to travel a whole lot growing up. So Christmas was always a very fascinating time of the year for me. But before we go any further, I'm going to show y'all today's board because it seems like people still enjoy that. I usually just write things related to the topic at hand on the board. Yeah, so let's pull out the board just for a little bit. Oh man, that red is not the color. I was worried, so I decided to like make it the bottom part green, but it looks blue. Yeah, I'm not gonna do the red anymore. I wanted to be festive because red and like green are kind of Christmassy colors. Um, Yikes. But here's the rest of the board. And before we go any further, I will say that this is a really tough month for me financially, unexpectedly. So if y'all are feeling really festive, please go check out my Patreon or my PayPal and help out. I'm not the sort of person to like ask for this sort of thing on social media, but it would definitely help me financially if I got a few more Patreon supporters. So if you like what I do and you have any extra cash and you want to do that sort of thing, even 1 month thing is definitely possible. I have some bios in the link. I have some links in the description that will take you to places to go. But I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time plugging that. So now we're going to get right into the Christmas stories. So the first thing I wanted to talk about today is a sort of unexpected tradition that I had growing up. I am going to talk a little bit about what it was like for me as a Puerto Rican person to celebrate Christmas because the ways that Puerto Ricans celebrate Christmas, I think it aligns pretty standardly with what other Hispanic, Latin American, Latinx people celebrated Christmas like. But I'm going to talk a little bit about what my Christmas was like because I believed in Santa for a very long time. I believed in Santa until I was 13. And I don't know when it is that people stopped believing in Santa, but usually when I ask my friends, it happened a good deal earlier than that. In my defense, there was two Christmases in particular that contributed to my believing in Santa for such a long time. I've kind of joked on a handful of live streams and private chats with friends that it was easier for me to stop believing in Jesus than it was for me to stop believing in Santa. And in fairness, I mean, kind of, that's kind of accurate. But the first Christmas that really cemented my belief in Santa happened when I was about 6. And it really created a tradition that I followed even as recently as not last Christmas, but the Christmas before. And towards the end of the video, I'm going to talk about stuff like, oh, what am I going to tell my kids when it comes to Santa? Spoiler alert, I'm not going to tell them about Santa. I'm going to tell them that Santa was like a person and people believe in. I'm wording this wrong. I'm going to tell my children, if I have any, that Santa is a thing that people believe in, but not someone that actually exists. I'm going to be one of those parents who's going to be like, yeah, you're going to have a cool Christmas, but the person who got you the presents was me. We're not going to do all of that. Oh no, Santa's so cool, but if we don't have any money, then why does Santa only treat like kids below a certain level of income really weirdly? We're not going to do that in my household. But the first Christmas that really cemented my belief in Santa as like this big thing was something that happened when I was about 8. I'm gonna say it was something that happened when I was about 8. And the reason why I have to think about this a little bit is because I spent my childhood in a lot of different countries. I was raised in Colombia, Honduras, and Panama, and I got to visit El Salvador briefly when I lived in Honduras. But this particular Christmas happened when I was still living in North Carolina for the first time. Some people know that I live in North Carolina right now, but I was born in North Carolina. I was born in Fort Bragg, which is located next to Fayetteville and a couple of other places in North Carolina. And when I was younger, I lived in a house over in the Rayford area. And one Christmas, I was playing a video game that I remember very fondly, partially because of this Christmas, that odds are a few of my subscribers remember fondly as well, because most of my subscribers are about the same age as me. I was playing Star Fox Adventure, and I was playing it very late into Christmas Eve / Christmas Day. I was trying to be a little rebel. I was trying to be a little badass, and I was trying to stay up all night and catch Santa because I was one of those kids. And what ended up happening was my family came home from going, I guess, holiday shopping. And it was about 1 in the morning. So I had actually done a pretty good job for like an 8-year-old. I had stayed up. I had done the thing. I was feeling really proud of myself. I was pretty far into Star Fox Adventure, and I was just having a grand old time. And all of a sudden, I heard the door to my house open. And I decided to be an inquisitive little sort and get up and go after Santa, because I thought that was what was going on. And to my shock, it was my family coming into the house from what I thought was holiday shopping. And while they were there, they looked at the Christmas tree in our living room. And our house at the time was one of those houses where it was like you enter the house, then you're immediately in the living room. There's no like little entryway or anything of that sort. And there was gifts under the tree. And I'm sure if you guys know me well, you know that I'm the sort of person that I've managed to convince people that I'm smart, but I'm not. So, like, you can imagine just how mind blown little Luciano was, little Joshua, because back in the day, when I live with my family, I prefer to be called Joshua because my name is actually my dad's name as well. And it would cause confusion for me to be called by his name. So most people called me Joshua, including my family. Nowadays, that is not at all what I'm like. I definitely prefer Luciano, and I also pronounce it differently than my dad does, which is one of the things that helps really solidify like which one of us people are talking to. But as a little kid, if someone called me Luciano or Luciano, I would have been really annoyed. I walk out and I see all these gifts, and my mind is just like blown. I'm just like, oh man, I miss Santa, but also Santa's real, y'all. It's something that like blew my like 8-year-old mind so far out of proportion. I was definitely a hardcore Santa believer after that. If Santa was a religion, I would have been a Santa sort of theist. And it was something that I look back pretty fondly on now, but it definitely contributed to me believing in Santa for so long because, like, even when I was 16, I still, like, even after I had stopped believing in Santa, I still couldn't really, like, come up with an explanation as to how the gifts were already under the tree, even though because I didn't have galaxy brain takes, I didn't understand that my parents probably put out the gifts after I had gone to sleep or after they thought I had gone to sleep and before they went out Christmas shopping. They also didn't really expect me to wake up at that time. I just so happened to like be up when they were there and like I heard them come in. I think they probably would have called me because my family, when I was a little kid, was one of those sorts of families that like really liked to do Christmas, which also contributed to me being a Santa theist, a Santaist for so long. The okay, so I think that like me being 6 at that time, or me being 8 at that time, makes that story kind of understandable and kind of forgivable. My next story, it's just my next story is kind of worse. It's kind of more egregious. Um, when I was 10, I was living in Colombia. That was the last full year that I would be in Colombia. This was in 2004, and I had moved to Colombia in about 2002. I would leave Colombia right before the end of 2005. And I spent one Christmas in Puerto Rico, one of the years that I was in Colombia. But this story is taking place in the Christmas that I was not in Puerto Rico. It was taking place in the Christmas that I was in Colombia. And this is definitely going to give you guys some ideas about my galaxy brain 10-year-old takes on reality and my understanding of how just things worked because I wasn't the brightest bulb in the house, so to speak. That is not how the expression goes. I wasn't the smartest kid, and it led to some interesting incidences when I was growing up. But in this particular story, I want you guys to understand something that I already kind of like alluded to in the last story. But for you guys to fully understand little Luciano, you have to understand that I was a mischievous sort. I was a little scamp. And because of this, I decided that I would try to find Christmas presents. Um, Looking back on this, it really shouldn't have made sense to me that Christmas presents would be in the house and they would be like a thing that existed independent of Santa Claus if Santa Claus wasn't real. But you have to understand my galaxy brain takes were not capable of being that intelligent. And also, once again, slightly in my defense, my birthday is in late November, so sometimes some Christmas presents become birthday presents, and some birthday presents become Christmas presents. It'd be like that sometimes. So one year when I was in Colombia, I was being my mischievous little self, and I was doing the creeping, I was doing the lurking, and I was searching for presents because I knew that presents were coming. I didn't know exactly when the presents were coming, and I didn't know what form they would take, but I was doing the hiding and sneaking. And also, if anyone's curious, because I see people debating the fact that I was a child once, if it makes you feel any better, I suffer from John Mulaney syndrome, which is when you look exactly the same your entire life, just at different heights. As a child, I looked almost eerily like I do now, except for sometimes I have facial hair. Like right now, I'm starting to get facial hair. For those, I'll see if I can find this old like Facebook photo that I have that wasn't originally a Facebook photo, but was a photo from when I was a kid and living in Colombia. I was all dressed up for like this thing that my mom and dad had to go to, and we were in a photo, and you can see me, and it's like it's basically like you took that child and you made them taller, and then you gave them like worse hair and facial hair. That's the sort of child that I looked like. But just imagine a smaller, not 5 o'clock shadowed version of this face, running around a house looking for closets, running around a house looking for closets, running around a house looking for gifts. I managed to find them specifically in my mom's bedroom. And I was being homeschooled at the time, so I was at my house most of the day. And I was easily able to find a point where my mom wasn't looking and she'd like hidden it in her closet. And I was just being like a mischievous little scamp. And also, before you say anything, yeah, I was an asshole as a kid. Like that's something that like a jerk would do. Sorry, but my mom knows the story and she does get back at me in the story, so there is like a comeuppance for those of you who are just like, oh man, you were the villain. I was the villain in the story, not Santa. But what happens is I managed to go and find the gifts, and the gifts are two very good games which to this day are easily in my top 5 favorite games. It's Ratchet Deadlocked and it is Star Wars Battlefront 2, both of which are just like the chef's kiss of games. And it was the original Star Wars Battlefront 2. It wasn't like the EA version, because the EA version would come out like 2 years ago. But like the original, if you were a kid who grew up like with Star Wars, so if you are about the same age as me and your family are like Star Wars people, that game is probably like one of the defining games of your childhood. It is a very good game. But the game that would actually be very intriguing to me was Ratchet Deadlocked. I found these games, I opened them, and like a dumbass, I started playing them. And I like eventually I would end up beating Ratchet Deadlocked, because Ratchet Deadlocked is a very easy game. It is not at all a difficult game. It's just a game that's extraordinarily fun. And it's a game that lots of people enjoy. It's a game where you really just go and you shoot 'em up. It's just a shoot 'em up game. So it was a lot of fun for me, very easy to beat. I tried to put them back, and you see, I thought I succeeded. I thought I had successfully gotten away with being a mischievous little scamp. And I didn't know this at the time, but I hadn't. My mom decided not to like directly confront me about this, about my mischievous little pranks, but she did get back at me. I found these games after my birthday, so it was already after November. It was early December when I went and I got these games, and I did my little sneaky. I did the little the things that I did, and I thought I had gotten away scot-free. But you see, my mom at this point knew that I was looking for Christmas presents. And in my slight defense, this wasn't the first year that I had looked for Christmas presents, but it was the first year that I had succeeded. So my mom decided to do something that was, in fact, a galaxy brain take on her part. She decided to write a note in a place that I would find. And she left it for me to find that said that I was on the naughty list. You have to understand that, like, oof, that hit me like where it hurt, y'all. And because of that, I was like, oh no, I'm on the naughty list. What am I gonna do? What's a mischievous little scamp to do in this situation? How can you not be on the naughty list? I got presents, and I didn't actually get like in trouble for this, but you have to understand that like as a child, that oof, that was something that like really got to me. I was shooketh. And because of that, I decided not to be a mischievous little scamp anymore for the rest of the year. But those two stories really cemented my belief in Santa, because at that point I had already suspected that Santa was a magical man and that he was capable of doing things that magical men can and want to do. And then I saw that he was reactive, that he could see what I was doing, and that he was actually analyzing me. He was studying me. I was like a weird lab experiment for him. And the idea that I was going to face some sort of accountability for my actions, however evil and mischievous they were, was something that scared me, because I didn't really think that like I was going to be held to account. I still got presents that year, including like other presents. And I also got presents from this thing called Three Kings Day. Growing up, I actually thought that Three Kings Day was a very distinctly Hispanic thing. I didn't really realize that it was apparently a Catholic thing from what I've heard. But I hope that other people in the chat and other people who watch this video later on actually like know what Three Kings Day is. But the way that my family celebrated it wasn't just that we put things in the stocking. We did that weird thing that some Hispanic people do, where we'd like, you get a shoebox and then like you get like the present in the shoebox. That year the present in the shoebox was like a toy figurine. I thought it was dope, so like I'm not complaining. But yeah. Oh, cool. So it's not just a Catholic thing. That was what I like found out when I was an adult and when I was planning my own Christmas stuff, which wasn't the case last year, but was the year before it when I was in Greensboro the first time. And I'm in Greensboro now, and this is what I'm doing for Christmas. And honestly, this is what I wanted to do for Christmas. I definitely really prefer this. I'm gonna stand up and I'm gonna show off the jammies that I'm wearing, because I actually really like these jammies. But these are Christmas jammies that my family also has. And also, I like the word jammies, so I'm gonna keep saying it. But yeah, this outfit that I'm wearing, this, and then the pants, I'm gonna like stand up. And also, yes, Chenna, Three Kings Day is the thing where you serve the cake with a little plastic baby doll inside. My family didn't do that because we aren't that extra. But we did do the other stuff, which was the stuff that I talked about. That was how we celebrated Three Kings Day. I have relatives who, what I've heard, I've heard of relatives that I have that apparently do the thing with the cake and the little plastic baby doll. My family, as far as I'm aware, at least as far as I can remember, my mom and dad never did that with me growing up. I might be wrong though. Don't like quote me on that. But that's definitely like a thing that I'm aware of other people doing. Yeah, so this was one of the things I got for Christmas last year. This right here is definitely like my least used of all of my Christmas presents, because my room is like pretty warm. And because of that, I don't often sleep in like pajamas like this. The other thing that I got for Christmas last year is probably like changed my life. And I mean that, and I'm only slightly exaggerating when I say that. It's my iPad. It is extremely bright. I actually just got like an update that made it substantially darker. But last year for Christmas, one of the things my family got me was an iPad. And it was actually like a pretty cheap one. I've heard that this one was only like, I think it was only like $250, which isn't cheap, which isn't cheap, but it is like cheap for these sorts of products. And this thing has like, I love this thing, y'all. I store all of my D&D and like Pathfinder and like writing stuff. The only thing that I don't really do that much on my iPad is I don't really like do that much writing on it. My family got it for me under the impression that I would benefit from having like a little writing device. Because for those of you who don't know, I am a professional writer. I ghostwrite, among other things, for a living. I write fiction. I have a pretty popular story that I like to chat about for 2 seconds in most of my live streams called, I'm not even going to try to say the title. It's a really long title. But it's a story over on Railroad that's really dark and kind of not safe for work, and it's a super fun story that I really like writing. New chapters go up most days. There probably will be a new chapter tonight, in the sense that like before I go to sleep, there'll be a new chapter published. A lot of fun story about a deity dude who just sort of like doing his thing. Really dark though. Has sex and stuff. So if that's not your thing, definitely don't check it out. But if that is your thing, check it out. I'll probably put the link in. I'll probably put the link in the description at some point. I'm not going to go in and like plug it in right now, because then I would have to like look away from the screen, and that would be kind of awkward. I don't really like on live streams, if I can help it. I don't really like doing that sort of thing on live streams. But going back to Christmas and stuff, I had mentioned earlier that I was going to talk about Santa, but first I'm going to show you the rest of the onesie. It's not a onesie, but yeah. So this is the shirt. It's all like this. It's like a matching thing. I have pants too, but I'd have to like walk away from the camera. And yeah, I do really like this. I like it a lot more than I use it. It's just unfortunate that most nights my room is really warm. My room is the warmest room in my apartment, which is uncomfortable and unfortunate, because I really, 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 really like the cold, and I'd much rather sleep in coldness than in warmness. So I'm just over here a sad bean. But I do tweet the link from time to time. The main reason I don't tweet about it too much is that it's kind of not safe for work, and it's also like really dark. When I say dark, I don't mean that like the not safe for work elements. I mean that like it's in chapters where there's violence. It's a really violent story, and like the main character is evil, just like a sort of an unrepentant bad guy doing bad guy things. So I don't feel super comfortable just like tweeting out the link to like everyone who wants to go see it. Fortunately, the chapters that are not safe for work are marked as such in the titles. Like if you're gonna see a chapter that's not safe for work, it's never gonna be like, haha, all of a sudden sex. That's not the way that I write stories, because I'm ace. So I don't really like doing that sort of thing super blatantly. I always like to just really telegraph the sort of not safe for work elements. So far, the few like not safe for work things that have happened have been like ultra violent murder, which I would argue is like the actual dark stuff. If people want me to, I can do a live stream at some point where I talk specifically about the story, because I've been interested in like getting people who follow me in other places to go and read my writing, but also like I'm not that good of a writer, so I'm just like, it's a struggle. But yeah, I mentioned that I was going to talk a little bit about Santa Claus. I'm not going to do like a whole history thing. I'm just going to give you my perspective I'm going to give you my perspective on Santa and like the idea of Santa. I think that the idea of Santa is like a cool idea, but I, for so many reasons, don't think that it's a good thing to be teaching children. I'm not going to judge people who do tell their kids that Santa's real. I'm not going to get in their heads and be like, you're a bad person. But as a parent, if I ever become a parent, my approach is going to be like, hey, I'm going to tell you something that other kids probably don't know, because I think it's important that you know what's going on. And I'm going to expect you to keep this secret, because other people could be hurt by this, and it's not really your place to tell other people that this isn't real, but it is my place to tell you that this isn't real, because it's not. Santa doesn't exist, and it's pretty important that you know that, because you're a mature person, because I've been raising you, and I hope that you're a good person. And yeah, and also like I'm not really hung up on the Santa thing. I just like I just never like, ever since I was an adult, I never really understood the whole point of Santa. And I feel like it potentially does more harm than good if your family like makes a big deal about it. If you're one of those families that's just like, hey, Santa's a thing, I'd be like, hey, cool. I'm not going to tell them that it's not real, but I'm not going to make any promises about how my kid will behave around them because my kid doesn't believe in Santa. Personally, I got like really sad when I found out that Santa wasn't real. My emotional reaction to immediately discovering that Santa wasn't real was something that was like really painful. And I just don't want other kids to have to experience that personally. I can understand why people get like annoyed about this, whatever. But that's just my approach. For the holidays, my family actually did like a lot of really cool stuff. We celebrated a lot of the holidays together. We were super close knit family. And when I lived in DC, which I did from about July of last year, from like pretty early July of last year until pretty late July of this year, I actually had a lot of fun being with my family and we got to celebrate lots of cool holidays together. It was nice because we got to do stuff like take pictures together and stuff. And when I was in college, I was pretty far away from my family. When I first went to college, my family was living in Columbus, Georgia. That was where I graduated from high school, and that was where I lived for about a semester. Because being a military kid means that the government decides to interrupt your high school experience not once, but twice. And the second time they decide to interrupt it is when you are in your second semester of your senior year. That was a super fun thing that happened to me growing up. I I wasn't even the last person in my graduating class to come to the school that year. There was one person who came later than I did. Her name was Anna. And for those of you who are curious, she's not the same Anna that you might think of if you hear me say the name Anna. She's a completely different Anna, who was also a military kid. She arrived in April, and I arrived in December, and I started school in that school in January. So, ouch. When she came, like I had already had a date to prom. Like it was that late in the school year when she arrived. That must have been brutal. But because of that, like my family wasn't where I was when I went to college. And like that definitely was an interesting experience because I was asked to go to a whole bunch of different places during the holidays when I was in college. Um, for anyone who is curious, I spent a couple of Christmases and like a summer or two with my family when I was in college. And then I spent a couple of Christmases and a couple of summers with my partner's family. I had one partner when I was in college. I dated her for a total of 5 years, like just under 5 years, actually. It was like 4 years and 11 months. And we were together from pretty much day one. Like we literally met each other the day that I moved into college, and we were together that whole time. She's actually like her face is in a few of my videos, and she's prominently in like one or two of my oldest videos. If you go like almost all the way back to the beginning of the YouTube channel. She's a nice person. We're still on good terms, so it's fine. But yeah, it was an interesting experience when I was in college because that was one of the first times I got to see how other people did their holidays. One of the only holiday things I did with other families growing up was and I think that this is a pretty common Hispanic thing. I've asked some of my other Hispanic friends about this, and they've mentioned that this is something that they did. A lot of us would go to spend like Christmas dinner at like someone else's houses. And at the very least in my past, it was usually a family member, but there were plenty of years where it wasn't a family member. The first year that I moved to Honduras, the first year that I lived in Honduras, I actually arrived on Christmas Eve, which is just a super not great time to travel. And when I moved to Honduras, I was already in high school. I was a sophomore in high school, and I loved Honduras. If you actually go back and watch some of my first videos, a lot of them are related to Honduras because for the longest time, I wanted to go back to Honduras after college, and I wanted to work either as a journalist or become a Honduran citizen and become a politician in Honduras. And obviously, that has changed. Obviously, just like real life is like that sometimes, your goals change. But when I first moved to Honduras, the very first Christmas I spent in Honduras, also, bye, Deb, it was super nice to see you. I hope that you have a happy holiday. And I don't know what I don't know what's going on, but I hope everything's good. Peace out, fam. I'm piecing the other computer, which is the reason I'm looking away, as if like Dev can see me for some reason. Galaxy brain takes over here. Um, the first year that I was in Honduras, the first thing that we did after getting to the country and going to the hotel where we were staying, before we could actually like move into a place, we were placed in a hotel for a couple of months, was actually go visit a family friend. The family friend became a family friend because we were moving to Honduras. And in the process of moving to Honduras, I, as a teenager, and I think my mom as well, just like as a diplomat's wife, got like assigned these people to help us transition, and we were like exchanging emails and stuff with them. We were getting to learn about Honduras through their eyes. We were getting to learn about what their experience was like as Americans in Honduras. They were also Hispanic folks. They weren't Honduran. The specific family that we went to go visit was like half Colombian, I think half Mexican, and they were American folks who had been living in Honduras for most of the last like 3 years, and they had been having a grand old time. So they were chosen as like our sort of little ambassadors. They invited us to go spend Christmas Eve with them, which was what we did. And that's probably like the most extreme example of that tradition, because can you imagine flying from North Carolina to Honduras and then almost immediately, like not even 2 hours after arriving in the country, going to go have Christmas dinner with another person, that like someone that you've never met in person before? That was my life for pretty much my entire childhood. The longest period that I went without spending, like without moving, was in my middle school. In my middle school, from 6th to 10th grade, 10th, 9th, and 10th grade in the United States are not middle school. But for those about 4 or 5 years, I stayed in one place. I stayed in North Carolina. I went to Fayetteville Christian School. I got super involved in my faith, got super interested in it. Yikes. Like me as an adult now, I can look at that and I can be like, hey, yikes. That wasn't good. But that was my childhood. When I found out that I was moving to Honduras, originally I was actually really disappointed, because I has been starting to believe that I was actually going to get to graduate in North Carolina. I did get to graduate in North Carolina, but not from high school. I got to graduate from college in North Carolina, and now I am about to graduate from master's school in North Carolina. Yeah, master's school, grad school. You guys know what I mean. That degree that you see back there, that's going to be joined by another degree. And I know that pointing is rude, but it's fine, because getting that degree was hard, and it deserves for someone to sass it. But yeah, I was a Christian growing up. Callan's asking this jokingly, because Callan is one of the few people I know online that's actually met me face to face. Callan and I actually knew each other not before I became an atheist. The entire time that I've known Callan, I've been an atheist. But Callan and I knew each other before we knew each other as like online people. And then we found out that we knew each other. We found out that we knew each other. And I know that no one's taking Callan seriously, but like if other people come in and they watch this and they're like, what's going on with these comments, fam? Just want people to know the context. Or if I ever become like a big time YouTuber and one day this gets like a ton of views randomly, people are like, hey, I need to know some random facts about Luciano. Boom, check out this random live stream that I did on Christmas where I talk all about my childhood. And also my collegehood, apparently. I understand why people get all annoyed when people point at things. I get it, but like whatever. That degree gave me so much heartache and headache, and I don't think that it gets sassed often enough. So yeah. Um I'm honestly really enjoying this. I'm just having like a chill time right now. It's really nice to be doing a live stream where this topic isn't something serious or educational. And I mean, I guess this is educational in the sense that like now people know a lot more about me. Um, oh man, if you guys were there during that live stream, you guys should have been there after that live stream. For I feel like not enough people do know about this, so I will say this much. Zal Callan and I do D&D together, which out of context is a weird statement, but we're among other people. We do D&D together every Sunday, including this Sunday. I didn't actually know that this Sunday we were going to be doing a stream, but we are going to be doing a stream. That's kind of exciting. It's going to be the last stream of the year, and that's very exciting. And we are going to hopefully stop the apocalypse. But during the last stream, it was only Cal and Zal and I, and we kind of have an informal rule at our campaign that if there's only like 2 or so people, unless it's an agreed upon side quest, we don't do any combat because we don't want like people to die just sort of needlessly. And during that stream, like right at the end of it, we started rehashing the true fact that Canada doesn't exist. It's not a conspiracy theory. Canada is a conspiracy theory. You've never seen Canada. You've never been to Canada. It's not real. And I'm joking, obviously, but it was a fun conspiracy theory. And after that, we started talking about even more conspiracy theories, some of which are probably also true, like the idea that Finland isn't real, which was a conspiracy theory I had no idea existed. I did not know that that was a conspiracy theory that people had. I knew that people thought that Australia wasn't real, because the reason I knew about this conspiracy theory was that there is an Australian YouTuber named Laserbeam who does like Let's Play videos, and he does mostly Let's Play videos, but there was a period where he was like branching out his channel and he did like other things. One of the other things he did was he like showed people a conspiracy theory that Australia doesn't exist. And that was how I learned that apparently Australia doesn't exist, which is a canon Luciano fact. I think in my tweet where I tweeted this out, I joked about canon Luciano facts. I made Facebook posts sharing this in places where I have like pals and stuff. And I considered writing canon Luciano facts, but I feel like my Facebook audience and my Facebook friends would not understand what that is. So I am pretty sure that I removed that part of the message. But also, if you're here and you haven't liked, feel free to like if you're having a fun time. I'm gonna try, like, we're starting to get towards the end of the stream. I typically like to stream for just around an hour, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less. At this point, I think that I will just go ahead and like share that link to the story that I was talking about, just because apparently people were interested. For some reason, I have almost 400 followers on the story, and I'm just now getting the achievement that says that I have 300 followers on a single fiction. I have 378. Seems like it's a little bit late, but I mean, whatever. So wait, I need to make sure that that is not the actual link. Cool. I'm glad I decided to like check myself. Boom. As I'm trying to paste it into the thing. Is it gonna pop up? Yeah. Okay. As a reminder, Super Dark Story features, I'm trying to think of like all the stuff that it features right now versus stuff that it'll feature in the future. Among other things, especially in the beginning. In the beginning, it starts off like a lot more violence than it is in the middle part, but right now there's going to be more violence. So if you get to like past chapter 15, not a whole lot of violence for a bit. For some reason, as a writer, it seems like when I try to do violence, it happens like all at once. And then there's just like a long time where there's like not a whole lot of violence. There's other stuff going on because if your character is literally a god, like then there's so many things that you can do. It's one of the fun things about featuring a character who's that literally and purposefully overpowered. Personally, I really like it. But yeah, it's very much D&D and Pathfinder-esque right now. There's going to be other stuff going on in it in the future, but if you're the sort of person who enjoys watching D&D, and if you're the sort of person who's like super into like the lore and all that stuff, you'll probably not hate it. I don't know like how to advertise my own story, so I'm just doing my best. But I really like it. I write new chapters. A new chapter comes out a good number of times a week. So there's over 250,000 words. In fact, there's almost 500,000 words in the story, and I've been writing it pretty regularly since late July. So the first like couple of posts were from forever ago, but if you want to check it out, you can. If you decide that you like that and you like my videos and you decide that you do want to support me on Patreon or whatever, there are links to Patreon and Royal Road. And if you are someone who wants to write your own fiction and you're looking for like a place to feature it, I would definitely recommend checking out Royal Road. You can publish things on Royal Road and elsewhere. So if you're someone who's like, I want to publish my story all over the net, then you can. And that's super cool. Yeah. My story is, in my opinion, better than the average story on Royal Road, but there are definitely some like ultra high quality Royal Road stories. Really popular genres on Royal Road include American isekai stories, which is super neat. I really like that. I had an isekai story forever ago, but I decided to take it down because it wasn't very good. And I didn't really want to like have that up if I didn't feel proud of it. I do feel proud of the story. The main reason I don't like advertise it all that much is because it's not safe for work. It doesn't start off particularly not safe for work, but it's very heavily stated. It's like, hey, there's stuff that happens in the story that's like not cool if you're sneezing. There's stuff in the story that's not cool if you're sneezing, guys. If you're sneezing, you shouldn't read the story. Check with your doctor before you decide to see A Dark God and Otherwise Godless Multiverse, which is also like a hell of a title, but isekai stories have those long ass titles anyway. So heck it, you know. I really like isekai stories, long titles personally, but now that we are starting to get so close to the end of the stream, I'm going to say that I am going to be starting to do more regular streams. I am going to do both like news-y streams like I did last week, and I am also going to do other sorts of streams, ones like this, where I just get to chat like non-professionally with y'all and consult your doctor. Grim dark fic. That's right, Chenna. You need to consult your doctor before you read my edgy boy stories. Also, the writing in the beginning is really rough. If you decide that you don't really care for the first arc, just go to like chapter 15. It really gets better after that. I made this joke when I was talking about my story in a private stream with some friends the other day. But I don't know why it has the audience that it does. It was on trending for like a month before, like right around the time that I moved to Greensboro. It got on the trending list, which I think is the reason why it got so much growth. But now it's like it has over 100 more people following it than it did before. Over the course of the last 2 months, the audience has grown, and I'm starting to get very close to I'm starting to get pretty close to 100,000 reads, which is mind-blowing to me, y'all. To put that in perspective, I've been making YouTube videos with some facsimile of regularity, with some like parody of regularity since about 2017. I've been here doing this sort of thing kind of in some other way for the last 2-ish years. And I have gotten about 15,000 views on my videos. I have been writing a story for 5 or so months, more or less. And I have almost 100,000 reads. And every day I get a few hundred reads, at least. Like even on my least popular day, I haven't, there hasn't been a day in the last 2 months where I've gotten under 100 reads, which is so weird because my story objectively doesn't deserve to be read that much. I'm the writer. I am the biggest fan of the plot because I know where it's going in my head. And like, I don't think it deserves that many reads. But if you do decide to go check it out, I hope you like it. It's a fun story. I'm writing a sort of story that I would enjoy reading, and I think that at the end of the day, that's the thing that matters the most. I also hope that you guys have been having a super dope Christmas or Hanukkah or Yule, whatever holiday you're celebrating. Or if you are like me and you're not really celebrating any holidays, then I hope that you're also having a great time. Christmas is a very interesting time of the year for a lot of atheists. And I would only imagine that it's similar for pagans as well, because pagans have distinct holidays that are super cool and worth knowing. And oftentimes they don't really feel comfortable celebrating those sorts of celebrations. At the very least, if you're in a place like North Carolina. And I know like different people have different experiences, so I'm not going to generalize all that sort of stuff. But I think that this is a very interesting time of the year. And regardless of where you are, what you celebrate, I hope that you are having a great day. I hope you're having a great night. I hope that you've enjoyed the story time. I considered trying to make it even more thematic, but I don't have like festival lights or anything. And if I have on my bathroom light, then it's just like weird lighting. It's not better lighting. It's not mood lighting. It's just different. And I would argue worse lighting. So yeah, I'm gonna be doing more storytime stuff like this in the future because I had a really good time. I had a really fun time doing this sort of stuff. I'm also probably going to start talking about like fantasy stuff on this channel. I've done fantasy writing. I've been doing fantasy writing my whole life. And I never once imagined that there would come a day where my writing would actually be as popular as it is. I also never imagined that there would come a day where my writing would be as polished as it is, because like even the worst reviews of my story are just like, this writing is good, but it's never like, the focus is never on the writing itself. No one, as far as I've seen, has read it and been like, yeah, I hate your writing. Most people have been like, your story has no plot, which I mean, fair. Or one really fair problem someone has with the specific story I was talking about earlier is that at around chapter 20, there is like a big old switch that happens. If you actually read the reviews, that review is fair and it's gotten a bunch of upvotes. I've been one of the people who upvoted it. I do resolve the problem that the review has, but I do want you to know that like none of the reviews in that are like up publicly, and I can't hide the reviews, but none of the reviews are actually like, hey, your story sucks, and none of them are actually inaccurate. So if you do want to know what sort of story you're going in for, I would recommend reading the reviews, both the good and the bad ones. The story might not be for you, might be, and if it is, that's super cool. If it's not, I get it, because it's not for everyone. I'm just writing the sort of thing that if I came across this on Royal Road, if I came across this on fanfiction.net, it's not a fanfiction, but if I came across this on something like that, I'd read it and I'd be like, hey, that's pretty good. Which is honestly all you can do. You gotta live your best life, and sometimes living your best life means just getting out there and writing that story. That's the advice I give to writers. That's the thing that I always did when I was younger. I had a Wattpad account and I wrote on Wattpad. There is actually, last time I checked, I had started a not safe for work story on Wattpad and I never got to write it, but like it was still up. A couple of years ago, Wattpad got like this big update and I'm pretty sure it's no longer there. But before then, I've heard of my story. I haven't actually like read it, but before then it was up, and like it wasn't written by, like you wouldn't be able to tell it was written by me because of the author name, but like I really I really do want to write it because I thought it was a cool premise, but it was writing it in college and I just didn't have the time. So my advice to anyone who wants to write, if you came onto this Christmas stream expecting Christmas, sorry, we finished talking about Christmas like 10-ish minutes ago. But if you are a writer and you actually really want to write a story, I definitely recommend sitting down and doing it. I recommend you just shoot for the fences because you never know what's going to happen. You never know who's going to read the story. I have made friends writing the stories that I have written, including on Royal Road, which is part of the reason why I really like Royal Road. I had an older account, and it's funny, I didn't know this until a couple of months ago, but there are like these websites that track digital fiction, and they track like self-published like web novels. You can find links, they're all dead, but you can find them to my old stories under my name if you know like the right sorts of websites to look at. And the links would have worked, but I deleted like my old accounts. I deleted my old like stories because I was like, these ones aren't very good, fam. And sometimes if something's not very good, then you just shouldn't read it. And I decided that that would reflect negatively on me as a writer if I kept it up, which is something I don't fully agree with now. But like at the time when I was doing those sorts of stories, I was disappointed with them. And I thought that like the ideas had potential and then the stories themselves, like the way I was writing them, just didn't. One of my favorite ones that I still think about from time to time is called Civilized Minotaur in an Uncivilized World. And it's not an isekai, it's just a plain old fantasy about a really smart Minotaur who just wants to be a businessman. He's tired of people being like, hey, you a Minotaur, therefore you bad, and I'm gonna put the smack on you. Like, he was just like, hey fam, I just want to open a business and I just like want to live my life. And people would like not let him do that. I only got a few chapters in, and the first few chapters were actually pretty good. But then I actually decided that like after a few chapters, isekai, you do want to know what isekai is. Isekai is a pretty popular subgenre of originally Japanese fiction, but now it's kind of everywhere. And it's this thing where like a character will either die or he'll otherwise be taken to another world, and he'll have his memories and all that sort of stuff, and usually he'll get like super cool powers or whatever. Lots of them are like very RPG-esque, like they give him the ability to like see stats and stuff. My stories, a lot of my stories feature isekai-esque elements because isekai is my favorite like subgenre of fantasy and speculative fiction. But I've also written other stories that are not up on Royal Road that feature fantasy that are not isekai. And yeah. With isekai, there's also like a thing called game lit, which is literature that is like written oftentimes by people who are like big fans of RPG stuff. And it has like stats tables and it features like role-playing elements. That's the sort of genre that I actually write in now, sort of game lit style stories. And I really like it. It's one of my favorite things. In my latest chapter, I indirectly introduce characters who are actually from Native American mythology. They're a specific type of monster that is indigenous, specifically that is from Mapuche mythology. And in all of my stories up until this one, I've always featured elements from Native American and Hispanic mythologies. And it's funny because I'm actually writing chapter 100 of my story right now. And this is the latest I've ever waited to introduce one of those types of characters or one of those types of monsters. So that's super exciting. It is now just about that time, so I am going to let people go. But before I do, I am going to do a single plug of my links. If you are someone who comes here and enjoys the sorts of stuff that I create, I would ask that you consider becoming a patron. Obviously, I'm not going to do anything that is like patron exclusive, at least not yet. Maybe I will after grad school, but not right now. So don't think that you're going to be getting like anything like super special, or you're going to be getting cut out from stuff if you can't. I know that not everyone can, but I'm just a grad student trying to live my life, and honestly, every dollar helps. So if you do have extra months that you can float my way, and if you do like the stuff I create, consider it. If Patreon is scary to you, I do have a PayPal as well. It's going to take me a second to pull that one up, but I am about to let you guys go. I really appreciate everyone spending part of their Christmas time with me, and I hope that you guys have a great old day. Just give me like 2 seconds to do that last little link. Yeah, going PayPal is a super fun website to navigate, guys. I'm still looking at the screen, but people can't actually tell that I'm looking at something else. So I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday time. Peace out, everyone. Bye. Yeah.